Size. There we go. How are you today, sir?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for being having the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you, sir. You're going to talk about .vvm, again, another foundation project. Um, and I'll be hanging out in the chat with everyone. If you have questions, I'll line them up for Tomas at the end of his session. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks. So my name is Thomas. I'm from Prague, Czech Republic. Currently, we have evening here. This is the last thing I'm doing before I leave my office. And I would like to show a few slides and a demo about .vvm, an open source MVVM framework for building web apps. And hopefully we will find someone who would help our team to add more features in the framework, or maybe you will find it useful if you build web apps. Then I think it's an option or a choice that you can consider. Let's start. So .vvm, as I said, it's a UI framework for building web apps, and we support both ASP.NET Core as well as old ASP.NET with .NET Framework. And we are using MVVM, model view model approach, which you probably used in WPF or Xamarin, .NET MAUI, and frameworks like that. This MVVM we have in .vvm, it's done on the client side in the browser, so the web page can be really interactive. You change something and some other part of the user interface can immediately respond to that. So it's not like Razor pages where you also have MVVM experience, but you need to make to post the form to the server and get a completely new HTML. With .vvm, everything happens on the client, and because we started more than 10 years ago, and writing JavaScript 11 years ago was quite painful, we designed the framework so you can use only C# and HTML. You don't need to learn all the JavaScript libraries, all the tools to build interactive client-side web apps. We have an extension for Visual Studio. We support even the latest insiders preview of VS 2026. And as I said, the project was started in 2014. We will be releasing its fifth major version quite soon. The project started really long time ago, before .NET Core 1.0. So in 2016, we looked at the new version of .NET, and we wanted to get support for .NET Core as well. So that was quite shortly after the release of .NET Core, we introduced a new version of .vvm that added support for .NET Core. But since we already supported .NET Framework, we kept this support as well. So we have two NuGet packages. One is .vvm.owin, which still works with .NET Framework, and the new is .vvm.ASP.NET Core. And the framework, the syntax, everything is the same, just the integration layer is different based on which platform you use. In 2018, we saw that Blazor was released, and the goal of Blazor is basically the same as the goal of .vvm, to allow building interactive web apps without writing a single line of JavaScript. So you just use C# and HTML, and the rest of the magic happens somehow inside the framework. So we were a little bit earlier, but our goal is the same. Currently, because .vvm supports even the old .NET framework, you can use it for two main scenarios. One of it is, of course, building new web applications with ASP.NET Core and all modern features that are present in new versions of .NET. And you can also use it to modernize old web forms apps, because you can install .vvm in a web forms project as a NuGet package. And these things can run side by side, but within the same process. So it's quite useful if you want to somehow modernize the legacy web forms app. And you want to do it in the same project. You don't need to set up YARP and have two applications and then figure out how to make single sign-on between them and how to synchronize caches and these things. So it's quite a low-risk method of doing that. The basic idea behind .vvm is that we have our own view engine. So basically, each .vvm page is just an HTML file, but we have a couple of syntax extensions. So we have our own components. It's quite similar to tag helpers, you know, from Razor. We have our data binding expressions. So this is a data binding to some property in the view model. As you can see on the right side, I have a C# class, which is a view model for my page, and you can reference this number property from the view model. And because we are in MVVM world, this data binding is a two-way. So whenever this value changes, you will see the new value updated in this component. And if the user changes the value here, it will get written back to the view model. So it's by default, it's a two-way data binding. And because there are some buttons or some other components where the user can interact with the page, so you can use this command binding to actually call methods in your view model. And of course, these methods can manipulate with the view model. They can access the values. They can write something there. So the framework will make this client-server communication. It will be handled for you, so you don't need to build API endpoints or anything like that. Basically, .vvm will make sure that the proper function will call and the proper values from the UI will appear in these properties. So if you want to try .vvm, you can open Extension Manager in Visual Studio and search for .vvm. We have an extension which will help you to start a new project. You just need to search for .vvm web application template, and that's it. It will create the project with the first page, and you can start playing with that. I have a little bit complex, a little bit more complicated, non-trivial application. First, I can show what it's doing. So I have opened the application. It's basically some configuration UI for car leasing. So I can select engine, I can select some color, I can change the number of kilometers I want to drive in 2 years for this rental, and select some options. And as you can see, this price is immediately recalculated and applied in the page. I can, when I'm happy with the selection, I can request a quote, and you can see some model dialog has opened. So that's it. It's quite simple. However, you can see that there are like two blocks in the same page which somehow interact between each other. I have some validation. For example, if I don't fill up the fields, you can see that these get highlighted. So like something like that. So let's look at the code. I have a normal, simple ASP.NET Core project. You can see the new version of the CSproj files. I'm targeting .NET 8, so I'm running on the long-term support version of .vvm. And as you can see, most of the page is just HTML with some bootstrap CSS classes. I'm not that satisfied with that because it's quite a lot of CSS classes, but it works, and most of it was written actually by Copilot, so I didn't have to write it myself. Let's start with something simpler. For example, here you can see the text box control. It's bound to some property in my view model. So number of kilometers. I have it, if I press F12, I should get to an appropriate property in the view model. It's MVVM, but because the framework handles the MVVM experience for you, you don't need to implement that iNotify property changed interface as you had to in WPF. So this is basically bound to this property. And then I have a function called calculate price, which takes all these parameters, and there is some kind of logic that will that will produce the final price for this rental. And there are also event handlers, so if I change the value as a user, this function would be called, so the price would get immediately recalculated. So you have a lot of components that are part of .vvm. So we have text box, we have checkboxes for these optional items. We have this selection box for the engine option, and as you can see, again, we have this data binding experience, so you can just bind it to a collection of some engine options, and each engine option, it has some ID, name, and monthly based price. And because this list never changes, we have also some attributes that can handle which properties get sent or bound in each way. So this would not have two-way data binding, it's just one-way data binding from the server to the client, and things like that. And again, when I change the selection, this calculate price would function would be called to recalculate the price. Also, I have this color selection. Again, I have a collection of all possible colors. So again, a list of some objects representing each color. And because it's a little bit special component, I'm using a repeater, which is just a thing that can repeat some part of HTML for each member of this collection, something as if in Blazor you would probably write for each loop. So here we are doing it in an MVVM way. And we have radio buttons, so these will allow you to select the color of the car. So quite simple, and I tried to somehow structure the page because it has two bigger components. So I have this quote form view model, which is managing that part where I'm configuring the options for my selection, and then I have the other part for the quote dialog where I need to enter email and phone. And you have seen the validation. I'm using just the standard component model data annotations attributes to make my validation work. And the dialog itself, it's also done by an just MVVM way. So I have a Boolean property called show dialog, and I'm just binding it to this model dialog component to its open property. So whenever this is set to true, the dialog will appear. Once you set it to a false, for example, by clicking on this close button in the header, the dialog will disappear. So it's just pure MVVM experience. The great thing is that I can easily take these view models and write unit tests or integration tests for them to make sure that the price is calculated correctly, and that's very convenient. The validation is also quite extensible. For example, I'm using Bootstrap, so when something is invalid, it should get the isInvalid CSS class. So using this property, I'm instructing the framework to place this isInvalid CSS class on the element that becomes invalid. And I'm saying that this text box becomes invalid when this email property has some validation error. So once this validator.value is set, it means that the CSS class would be applied on this very HTML element. And I can also show the error message text with this CSS class invalid feedback, again for this email property. So that's how I did this validation experience, for example. So that's a short demo of .vvm. One quick tip: this model dialog component is new to .vvm 5, and basically it renders the default dialog HTML element that was added to HTML standard quite recently. So we are always trying to stick to the native HTML way of doing things. We don't try to invent our own wheels. We are trying to reuse wheels that somebody else already designed and added in the web browsers. So that's a short demo. You can find more demos on our GitHub or on our website .vvm.com. And let me share just a couple of other ideas what we added recently in .vvm. I did some comparison because we have very similar objectives as Blazor, and we are trying to allow people write web apps without writing JavaScript. As you could see in that demo, I didn't use a single line of JavaScript. And I measured the client-side footprint, how much JavaScript or how much resources the framework needs to load so this experience would become possible. So with .vvm, we need only about like 56 kilobytes of compressed JavaScript. With Blazor Server, that is quite similar. However, in order to make Blazor Server work, the page needs to be connected to the server using the SignalR connection. So if you are on a non-stable connection, that could make some tiny issues. And with Blazor WebAssembly, of course, because the C# code runs in the browser, you need to download the .NET runtime, which was quite heavily optimized to not be big, but still it needs to download something at least on the first page load. This was just for a hello world experience. So if you are looking for something that would be that would have a very low client-side footprint, .vvm can be a way to go. When .vvm is communicating with the server, when I'm calling these functions in C# code, basically .vvm takes the view model, serialize it as JSON, and send it to the server. And there is also quite heavy optimization, so we don't serialize everything. We serialize only the things that have changed. However, all HTTP communication with the server is stateless, so you can scale the app to multiple instances, and the view model always carries the entire state the page needs to be able to work. So that's quite nice from this perspective. And in some cases, I prefer using .vvm because Blazor, both versions are great, but each one of them has some slight limitations, and in some environments it could be a little bit tricky to use. We did a couple of improvements in .vvm 5 recently. So we had server-side rendering from the first version. So if you loaded the web page and you didn't have JavaScript, you could see at least some HTML, and that's great for search engines, which are much more happy with pages where they don't need to run JavaScript to be able to ingest the page content. So in version 5, we did some optimizations and improvements, so this server-side rendering works even better. We added support for localized routes, so you can register the same page with a couple of localized route entries, and based on some part of the route, the culture would be automatically figured out by the framework. And it's still the same page. You can use resource files to localize the page. However, it will respond to multiple versions. And it will also render the meta HTML elements in the header pointing to other versions of the same page in other languages, because that's also what search engines quite appreciate. And this can happen automatically without you don't need to do anything special for that. Just provide these localized names of the or localized URLs for the pages, and the rest would be figured out by the framework. Also, front-end or public-facing websites, they usually provide search engines with sitemaps. It's an XML file that lists all the pages on the site, including all the localizations and other metadata. And because we have a route table, which basically contains information about every page in the application, we can generate this file automatically. And if it's, for example, if you imagine a blog site, there would be individual blog articles which would have the article name as part of the URL. So this mechanism of generating sitemaps is extensible, so you can write your own provider that would give this infrastructure all possible values of some route parameter. So then all the blog posts would appear in the sitemap. You just write a simple class that will provide all options for this particular route parameter. And of course, everything could be localized. So even if you have localized blog posts, you can provide these pairs. For this culture, it will be this value. For this culture, it will be this value. So these are a couple of features we added for users who use .vvm for public-facing sites. Then this framework was always designed with a line of business apps in mind. So if you are writing any admin dashboards or like applications where user need to enter a lot of data, there are complicated forms with difficult state management, a lot of grid views and these things, we have a bunch of components in .vvm that can help with making these experiences. And we did some improvements to the grid view component, which can render pageable and sortable grids. So now we support token-based paging. So instead of selecting the page number in the result set, there are some data sources which don't allow that. They will just give you the first page of records and then some kind of continuation token. And you need to use this token to be able to get the second page. And if you need the 8th page, then you need to read the previous pages and use the token to get to the next page. So we now support also this token-based paging. And also, if you want to sort by multiple columns, that wasn't that easy to do in previous versions of .vvm. And now we have it. Also, we added the like infinite scrolling, infinite paging experience. So if you scroll to the bottom of the table, we can load automatically the next page of results and continue doing so until you reach the end of your data. You have seen in the demo the new model dialog component. It's just a wrapper over the browser's dialog HTML element, but that's great because this dialog element was introduced in the standard and it was designed so it would be easily stylable by CSS. It is accessible, so it has the support of the area elements and attributes and these things. So we are just a tiny wrapper over this element, and also a lot of built-in features that are supported in this element we have also. So if you press the escape key, the dialog would close, and a lot of these things. And we have some customers who need to use very complicated components in .vvm pages, and because .vvm it's a custom framework based on the old Knockout.js, then it's not that easy to find all components, especially if you need some special charts or editors for diagrams or things like that. But there is a bunch of React or Svelte components that can do the same. And we have added an option to host Svelte components in .vvm pages. So you can use Svelte component in a .vvm page. The component can get information, can get objects from your view model, so you can very easily pass data to the component. And also the component can modify this view model. So you can just, for some part of the UI, you can use a React or Svelte component, give it access to some part of the view model, and let the component to manipulate with the view model, modify some data inside, and these things. So we have added support for Svelte in .vvm 5, and we are looking for other frameworks as well. So if you have any other JavaScript framework and you have some favorite pack of components that's present there, our integration bridge for these two frameworks is quite generic, so it shouldn't be a big issue to add support for more frameworks in the future. On Thursday, there is the third day of .NET Conf, and I will have a session there about how we replaced newtons of JSON with the new system text JSON in .vvm 5 and how it helped us. So this is the most important slide because we did a test case on a quite huge view model, 380 kilobytes. It's a view model from a real production planning application. So you can imagine a big screen with a lot of things on it. It's quite extreme. I think that the average size of view model is like order of magnitude smaller. But the serialization dropped from almost 10 milliseconds to almost 3 milliseconds with system.text.json. We didn't just change the libraries, we did a couple of other optimizations. So this doesn't mean that newtons of JSON would be bad. Just system.text.json is using newer things from the new .NET, the new primitives for manipulating with spans and memories. So it has more ways how to be efficient. However, this serialization time dropped to something like 30%. So we are very happy with that. We will do more performance tests, and this was a quite complex thing to do. So we are happy that it helped in such a significant way. And also we have a pull request which is now almost finished, and that should save about 50% of memory allocations. Because if you look in the framework how we have implemented .vvm and our own view engine, basically we build an object for every element in the HTML hierarchy. Sometimes it's just an HTML element, sometimes it's some component like a button or literal, which we use for outputting text. And each of these objects carried a dictionary of its properties, because this div element can have some classes and some other attributes, and we stored all these things in a dictionary. So every object in this control tree had its own dictionary. We found out that most objects have only very small number of properties, like 2 or 3 or something like that. So we built our own structure that can hold up to 8 properties without allocating that much data in memory. And this is how it helped us to reduce the number of memory allocations. So on most pages we experience something like 50% of saving in terms of number of objects allocated, which is great, because garbage collection, the speed of garbage collection scales quite closely to the number of objects the garbage collector needs to track. So that's also one of the improvements I'm quite enthusiastic about. As I mentioned at the beginning, you can use .vvm to modernize old web forms apps, because you can just install .vvm NuGet package in the web forms app, and you can start replacing web forms pages with .vvm pages, and you can do it just one by one. So you can do one page every day, one page every week, something like that. Everything would still work. It would be still the one .NET Framework project. You will deploy it the same way as you used to do before. And you can keep most of the business logic untouched, because like it's still the same framework, same libraries, same things. And after you get rid of all dependencies on system.web and HTTP context and this API that is unsupported, you can then switch the target framework to .NET 8, because .vvm is the same. The main part of the framework is the same on both old .NET framework and the new .NET. So this can be quite a low-risk, slow, incremental method of modernizing old web applications. If you tried the side-by-side modernization with using YARP, you can probably confirm that it's quite difficult to get it started, because you have two applications and you need to synchronize session, you need to handle single sign-on. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I have done a couple of applications using this way. However, the beginning was quite painful, and also there was something that the old application just hold in memory, and it's not accessible to the other applications, some kind of caching. You need some distributed cache to be able to share this information between two applications. So I was fascinating while using .vvm for the modernization, that it can be so easy, because you still run within a single process. You have everything at your disposal the same way as you had in web forms, and you can do quite small incremental changes to go towards the new version of .NET. So basically, that's it. We are looking for contributors. So if you want to get your hands dirty, we have a couple of interesting challenges that we would like to improve in our framework. We have support in Visual Studio. It's quite a large extension for Visual Studio that implements support for our own view engine. However, we would like to re-implement this to use Language Server Protocol, so we could have this extension available also for VS Code and for Rider. So if you are looking to write complex algorithms with manipulating with syntax trees and these things, just ping us. We would be really happy to get like some support with that, because our team capacity is quite limited and we want to do that, but we know that it would take us quite a long time. Also, for the modernization use case, we have a converter from web forms to .vvm, but it's quite just a bunch of like static analysis rules, so it doesn't work that well. It helps only with small, easy, simple transformations. But we were thinking about using AI to make this conversion process, to move it to the next level, because AI could understand what you are doing in the code behind and would somehow be able to figure out how the corresponding view model should look like to achieve the same functionality. And if you want to help any open source project, not just us, it doesn't need to be just that like you would write a pull request. Also, if you create samples, if you help writing some documentations or making videos about how you use this framework, what is your experience with that, all these things can help the open source contributors quite significantly, because we are building the framework. We don't have much time to do marketing or videos or things like that. So any help, even in this side, would be greatly appreciated. And I think that all other maintainers of other open source projects, they would agree with that this could be extremely helpful. So if you're looking for something that you can be proud of to show in your CV that you help some open source projects, this could be a great way. If you have any questions or thoughts, just I will be here, so you can engage with me in comments. And here are a couple of links. We have main website, documentation, and a list of samples with links to GitHub repos where you could get the code. So I hope that you find that very interesting. And if you try it, please share your experience with me or with other people from the team. We would be really happy to get any feedback.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it a bunch. If you have questions out there, please feel free to drop them in the chat. One question that came in much earlier was, is there any concern if I'm doing cross-platform? So if I'm on Linux, do I have any concerns there?
I think not, because one of the core contributors, co-maintainers of .vvm, he is running on Linux. He is developing .vvm on Linux, so naturally this should work. Of course, the .NET framework version is Windows only, but .vvm.ASP.NET Core package, it supports .NET 8 and newer, so it should run on Linux without any issues. We have quite a lot of .vvm applications running in containers in Kubernetes, so I can confirm it works.
Oh, awesome. Well, there you go. All right. A couple thank yous coming in. Sadly, I don't have translate turned on for a couple of these messages, so I'm not actually sure what some of the messages are saying there in Spanish. And StreamYard does not translate. So apologies for that. All right. Well, Thomas, I will let you have your day back. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And everyone else, go look up .vvm. We're proud to have them in the .NET Foundation. And yeah, if you're looking for that first project, I loved you had the slide. I didn't even have to ask the question. So there's always opportunity. But Thomas, I'll leave you to it. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thanks. See you.
Take care.